This is Visitor's Book, and I'm Maija, your host. In this program, we're going to be meeting with diplomats and foreigners who are here in Pakistan, and we're going to find out what they really think about the country. Let's go. Today, we're meeting with Claus Euler, a German baker who has been in Pakistan for over 20 years. So let's go find him. Hello.
Welcome, Maija, and the Indus TV crew.
Thank you so much.
Please have a seat in my garden.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
So, you've been in Pakistan for over 20 years. And
23 years.
Yeah, exactly. And you've lived in South Asia longer than you've lived in Germany.
That's true.
How did you end up here?
Well, let me give you a little rundown. I was born in 1955 in Düsseldorf, so that is close to the Dutch border. Mm-hmm. And my father died when I was 12, so my mother, as I was the eldest, had to look after 3 kids. And this is a good opportunity to remember how she did all this. And she exposed us pretty early to other countries, other cultures, which had an influence on me to study anthropology, which I did at the university in Cologne. Okay. And in 1977, she took us to Sri Lanka.
Wow, that's quite rare. Like back in the day, people didn't really travel that much.
She spent all her money on traveling and exposing us to other cultures. And so this is how I got an interest. And then obviously, once you have had such a contact to a country like Sri Lanka, you want to see other countries of the area.
Exactly.
1979 was my first touch at Zahedan border to Pakistan. Foreigners normally come by air.
Yeah.
I came by car.
Wow.
The country attracted me particularly because of the topographical diversity.
Yeah.
As an anthropologist, when you have topographic diversity, you have cultural diversity.
Exactly.
And so you have language diversity. You have, because of the cultural diversity, you have food diversity. And so my affinity to food and preparing food and spreading food as an item and as a produce has always been with me since I was very small. I was like 6 or 7, a boy in the father's or parents' garden. I used to grow my own tomatoes when I was a young boy.
Yeah.
In a village we lived outside of Düsseldorf. I used to know each and every place where I could find horseradish, where I could pick hazelnuts, where I could find this and that. So I always walked around with a plastic bag in my pocket to even collect horse dung, especially during the season
for the garden,
when there were parades. And so I learned right from the beginning what it means to grow your own things.
And that's a very important
And I had
skill.
a guru. My father's gardener was a wonderful old man who had established a huge compost in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And I was always astonished what different things are actually growing. It's not only a dumping place for your kitchen waste, but it's obviously a hugely fertile soil over there. So tomatoes were growing back and cabbages were growing and everything. And this guy used to put for his lunch, he used to put onto a plate, he put slices of muli, a little bit of salt,
radishes,
put another plate and shake it twice, and that was his lunch.
Wow.
So I was very impressed by...
So when you first told your family and friends back in Germany that you would be moving to Pakistan, what was their reaction? What was the image that people in Germany had about Pakistan back then?
Well, if you look back, my first touch to the subcontinent was in 77, and when I moved here was in 96, so almost 20 years later. Yeah. The family was not astonished because I had been traveling almost every year at least once. I was in Kashmir in India in 1980. met with the Dalai Lama over there and stayed a few weeks in different gompas, these monasteries.
Yeah.
And then it was also my studies which directed me towards South Asia as a subject.
Exactly.
I did my master's on the conflict between Sinhalese and Tamils in Sri Lanka.
I see. Fascinating.
So that was the topic of my thesis.
Yeah.
And then afterwards I applied for a scholarship to do my PhD research in Nepal. So Sri Lanka, Nepal, then Pakistan. I also had co-founded 2 organizations, 2 NGOs in Germany.
Okay.
One is the Institute for Ecology and Action Anthropology, which is an organization which put emphasis on supporting and preserving the cultures of indigenous societies and communities who know how to preserve places like the Amazon forest.
I see, yeah.
So it is not that you save the environment looking at trees only. Our approach was from sort of the ethnic side of it.
Yeah.
This is an organization which I then took to Switzerland. So they have an office at the Zurich University there. And there is a series of books which this institute was publishing. I edited one of those on tourism.
Yeah.
I can show you a copy of that. The other organization was the Working Group for Development Anthropologists, which came to life because of the conflict between state development and academic anthropology. One was saying, you always need 2 years to come with a proper answer to our requests for studies and background. The other side, we were saying, state development is not working properly.
Yeah.
So this has been put together. We have been organizing common conferences, and this is a member organization with, I think, more than 600 members nowadays of all sorts of academic subjects. So that also contributed to my continued interest in South Asia, because I have only been once in Africa, in Kenya. Again, one of my mother's invitations for visiting another continent. I've been to Haiti, to Jamaica, to USA, China, different places like this.
But no place like Pakistan.
But no place like Pakistan, where I finally got married and have twins here with my Pakistani wife. They are 18 now.
Okay. How did you meet your wife?
We met in an event which was held by the Swiss embassy when I got my new job.
Yeah.
My boss invited all sorts of organizations with whom I would have to work together. My then not yet wife was there, and she was basically the only person I had a good conversation with. The rest was, party gupshup.
Yeah.
So I said, this lady, she at that time worked for the SDPI, the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and I will have to meet her again just for these professional exchanges. And then we met a few years later, again when I had my birthday party. I invited her to come, and there it happened.
Yeah. Could you ever have imagined that you would spend the rest of your life in Pakistan back then?
Absolutely not.
No?
I mean, even when I look back to 1979, when I touched the country for the first time, it was a few kilometers inside. From Zahedan, we were driving towards Quetta along the old, train tracks.
Yeah.
Somebody stopped us, and because he saw our foreign faces, we had a conversation with him, and he gave me, at the end, a little amulet, which was silver coated.
Yeah.
And he said, this is my bakshish. And this is how I learned what bakshish means.
Okay.
It's not something under the table, it's something given by the heart. And that made me think, how wonderful is this? And I didn't imagine, even studying anthropology at that time, that I would come to this particular country. It could have been Nepal, it could have been Sri Lanka, it could have been India, where I have traveled extensively as well.
Yeah.
And I have been to every country of the subcontinent except the Maldives.
Yeah.
Maybe I go there someday and have a nice fish meal.
So what do you think it was about South Asia in general, the culture, that made you so interested in the area, in the region?
Well, culturally speaking, as an anthropologist, my interest was obviously on diversity.
Yeah.
You find so many different and interesting aspects of culture in this part of the world that it kept on asking new questions to me, new topics to explore and proceed with my studies that I actually never had any interest in, let's say, Latin America, or I haven't been to Australia. So other places simply I didn't have the time for. There was so much to explore and to see and
there still is, I'm sure.
And travel, yes. A lot of things I haven't understood and have to learn. One doesn't stop learning.
So over 20 years, you've seen the country change quite a bit, especially when it comes to the security situation. What has your experience been in terms of that?
When I came here, I settled in Islamabad, and I don't think that I remember any traffic lights at that time. So I would go with my bicycle or my motorcycle to the embassy, which is close by from where I had my residences, And as a foodie person, I remember very well how many restaurants were there at that time. There was a hangout where Benazir Bhutto would go.
Oh yeah.
And there was Omar Khayyam, the Iranian.
Which is still there.
Yes, and a few others, and that was it. So this has tremendously developed, obviously in terms of structures of houses. And when I bought this house, it was a 60% policy. Now it's 90%. So you could basically cover almost the entire lawn, which I didn't want on purpose because I had kids. And the security issue was quite important. But even during the time when I was working in Khoistan, Indus Khoistan, which is a tribally administered area, I never felt threatened.
Really?
I never felt insecure. I was doing my job. From 2000 to 2004, I was having an office in Patan on the KKH. And I had an office in Aptabad. So these 4 years I was not in Islamabad. The rest of all the 23 years I've always lived in Islamabad, and I would not really want to move anywhere else. Karachi for me is too big. And here, what do you have here? You have the mountains. You are close to any destination in the north.
Exactly.
It takes me 10 hours to drive to Gilgit and Hunza, where I have traveled a lot of times, and again and again I can go. And then you make friends. You make friends through your work. You make friends through your other acquaintances during all these years, and it has been a good time. So Indus TV had been there at one of the last farmers markets at a time when I already sold out on my cheese popovers, which is one of the items which is amazingly selling well. So since it is almost lunchtime, I can make some for you today.
Great.
In the kitchen, and we can enjoy them.
Perfect.
How about that?
Yeah, let's do that. Good. We're going to take a short break. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. I'm here in Klaus Euler's kitchen and we're ready to start baking some cheese muffins, right?
Yes.
Great.
Since I always like to experiment and you haven't seen the combination of bread and cheese, I have this wonderful cheese partnership with a guy in Karachi.
Yeah?
I'm gonna make some cheese muffins today.
Okay, excellent. So what are the ingredients? What's gonna
So for that
go in
I
there?
will first put in the eggs. These are desi eggs,
Excellent.
local eggs. You need 3 and we'll have 12 muffins at the end.
So how did you first get this idea of starting to bake German or European style bread in Pakistan?
I always missed my own bread since I've been in South Asia for such a long time.
Yeah, it's difficult to find
And
here.
at some point I said I have to do it myself. And then I quit my job in 2012 and I said the only other thing I can do is bake bread.
Okay.
So that's how it all started, very simple. I'll take some butter
Okay.
and melt this.
All right.
Then I take fresh milk. This is fresh buffalo milk.
Oh wow, where do you get that from?
There's a lot of farms which have this nowadays.
Oh yeah.
And I get it to my doorstep,
Wow.
quite reasonable price. Then I mix this with a tablespoon of salt.
Okay.
This is Himalaya salt.
Very healthy.
Yes. But you need a bit more than the normal salt because it's not very strong.
Okay.
Then you add a shot, however strong peppery you want, with cayenne pepper.
Okay.
So I'll have to wait for the butter to melt. And I put a bit of yeast. Then I mix this for...
Okay, and then the butter goes in.
The butter goes in.
And this is like you're going to combine it with the cheese which has been locally produced in...
Yes, this is a very much aged raclette
Okay.
from Karachi's. I work together with these people.
Okay.
And they are the best quality handcrafted cheesemakers in
Pakistan.
Pakistan. It looks a bit like this now.
Oh,
So it's
I
very,
see. Yeah.
very strong in taste. So I would have to grate this.
All right.
This is about for 12 muffins. Takes about 200 grams.
All right.
So I have already cut this into pieces, and I will do that after I have mixed this. Should be taking about a minute.
All right.
And after that I slowly add 2 cups of my organic wheat,
Flour, yeah.
which I get from a friend who has been doing wheat growing for more than 25 years.
Here
It
in
is
Islamabad.
slow, yes, it's slow stone milled. So best quality. I get it about 2 or 3 days before I use it, fresh, and that makes part of the quality of the bread. The breads I make, I can show you one later, has a shelf life of 7 to 10 days.
Really?
If it's a sourdough bread, I maintain my own sourdoughs. It easily lasts even longer. So this
Okay.
should be okay now.
Great.
And slowly, I always sieve this because
Yeah.
you never know what is in there. So you see here, there's a bit of chaff left. I mean the good part. So this also can go in. And then I Mix it again.
You like to use a lot of local products, is that right?
I have, for my baking, I have put 10 principles, even in writing,
Yeah?
to myself. And one of the main principles I have is to use maximum local ingredients. From the wheat, I'm the only baker in the country probably who gets the rye from within Pakistan.
Really? Wow.
And that is because I want to keep my eco footprint the lowest possible.
Yeah, that's very important.
So I also add garlic chives.
Okay. Wow.
Or do you want to add this
Sure.
in there?
Sure. More than happy to.
And
All of it?
yeah, all of it. Then you can mix
Okay.
it
All right.
with your hand. In the meantime, I do this cheese, which also goes in.
Wow. This is going to be amazing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you sell all these products at the farmer's market on
I
Saturdays
sell that,
here.
yes. I don't have an outlet because I'm pretty much doing everything alone and myself,
Yeah.
other than my cook. For some things she's
Yeah.
helping me. And it is expensive to have an outlet in Islam.
course, yeah.
It's
It's
not
not easy.
possible if you also produce smaller quantities. I don't principally doing it or basically doing it as a profit or income.
Of course. It's just a hobby, right?
It's more of a hobby.
Yeah.
At the moment I make about 20 or so loaves of bread for every Saturday market.
Yeah. Do you have any plans of, I don't know, starting to sell your products in some restaurants or?
I do production on order basis.
Okay,
You know,
so
these muffins,
yeah.
for example, have gone to Peshawar last week.
wow.
So that was for the first time.
Yeah.
Now I mix this in, a good part of it,
Okay.
and stir it again. And that's already
And that's it then.
the whole story.
Okay. Very simple.
The rest of it will go on top once we have filled the muffins in the forms.
All right. So next, we just need to.
Yeah, we just
it
need
here,
to
yeah.
fill the little silicone
Yeah.
trays with this.
And what other products do you make besides bread?
I have what you also see here used a partnership with a cheesemaker in Karachi
Yeah.
who is producing cheeses handcrafted
Yeah.
without any processing as what you find in the market. And he's a crazy passionate cheesemaker, as crazy as I'm about my bread making. But he has a main job, so he does this only
On the side, yeah.
on the side and as a hobby. But the demand has gone up so dramatically. that
Really?
He has now put up a second production day.
Is it?
One
wow.
of his sons has come back from Malaysia from his studies.
Huh.
So he's helping out and learning. And so for me it is always inspiration, meditation at the same time
Yeah.
to mix things. And I have a particular approach which I call value addition. You know, I don't want to sell cheese only or bread only. I want to sell something which I make out of
Yeah.
cheese and bread. So bread and cheese is a combination in this
Exactly.
particular recipe which has really found admirers and lovers. And that's why I also sell it to people in Peshawar. Yeah. That was happening last week for the first time.
And then you make some like chutneys as well, right?
I make chutneys. I have my own salt line.
Really?
I have Himalaya salt with dried herbs from my roof garden or from the garden around. I do muesli. I can show you these products also. And the latest addition were apples from Upper Hunza, from Pasu, 2,500 meters. You know, you just open that box and it smells amazing. Yeah. Real apple smell. So even there I prefer to add value by making marmalades, apple marmalades, where I add a bit of my garden lime juice and cinnamon and wonderful
sounds delicious
results. I have the whole fridge full of probably 15 or so different types of pestos, which I make with olive oil from fresh herbs I have growing in my own garden.
Yeah, but we can
I do walnut breads,
go.
and when I make carrot juice, I keep the fiber, dry it, and crush it and mix that into breads.
Great.
And so there are about, I think, at least 20-25 different breads I make. I make buns as well. I make all sorts of other bread-related products, mainly non-sweet.
Yeah.
I make an orange bread with those calamondin oranges you saw in my garden.
That you have in the garden, yeah, wonderful.
So I cut them in half, take out the seeds, crush them, and use that as the main ingredient.
So that's like a fusion of European recipes mixed with Pakistani ingredients, right?
And the third ingredient is my imagination.
Of course.
You know, I am very much what I call a frugal person. Frugal innovation with little inputs and cost effective, but still innovative. Yeah. So this is the thrust behind my philosophy of doing what I do. And bread making is part of it.
Great.
So now we have this ready, and I can put that into the oven. Will take about 15 minutes at 180 degrees and then another 15 minutes at 200. And then I hope you can taste something nice.
Perfect. We're going to take a short break. I'll see you when we come back. Welcome back. I'm here in conversation with Claus Euler, a German baker and a gardener. So what are you growing here on your rooftop?
Oh, I started about 12 years back.
Okay.
And was thinking, what do I do with my compost? Because I'm a compost guy from early years, as I told you before. So I came up with the idea to expand my garden space of this 1 canal plot to the roof. So I constructed these on the carrying walls of the house. And in all those years, I have planted about 100 plus different vegetables and.
Yeah. What is this here? Tomatoes?
Yeah, you have brinjal. You have taking over most of the space now is this sweet potato, which I like very much.
Great.
And then you have basil as company plants for tomatoes. So this space, which has been with green beans before, until about a week ago, is now reserved for the tomatoes, where you see the different pots sprouting with the little seedlings. Yeah. Then you have different salads, you have kale, you have lal muli, all sorts of parsley is there, and rucola is coming back almost by itself. So I've been growing anything from aloo to ika, sorry. Aloo is potatoes, and ika is a plant which is found here very frequently. People don't know it. It has that purple shape leaf, and it makes a wonderful pesto.
Yeah. So in Pakistan, it's usually women who cook at home. How is it with your wife? Is it you or her?
Oh, it is me. It's absolutely me. Yes,
Only you.
She's not into food at all.
No?
When we got to know each other, I presented her with an invitation for a trout dinner.
Wow.
And she said, okay. So we had that, and the impression it left was not too deep.
Okay.
So I'm the one who is cooking, and I like to experiment. I like to collect recipes. I like to use things which are locally available and which I grow myself, because I can go to the roof and pick something.
Exactly. That's
and it
perfect.
is not possible to get it fresher than from your own garden.
So the things you like to cook, are they mainly Western dishes or also some Pakistani dishes?
I would say it's a fusion of all sorts of things. You know, like my breads, I wouldn't even claim that these are German breads anymore.
Exactly.
Apart from certain basics, like baking with sourdough or baking with all sorts of other yeast-like ingredients, you know. But it's what comes to my mind and what I find in my recipe collection.
Yeah.
But yes, mostly Mediterranean kitchen, Asian kitchen, Thai,
Perfect.
whatever.
When you first got married, what was your family's reaction when they realized you were going to be now staying in Pakistan, and it's quite a different culture at the end of the day to
That's true, yeah.
German culture, is it
No,
right?
they were happy.
Yeah.
Because I had been in the country for 4 years at that time.
Okay. Had they visited you here
Yeah.
by then? Yeah?
Yes.
How did they like it?
Last year, that was the last visit and the first for my sister, because she's a midwife and she has difficulties to make time because of her scheduling and all. But my Swiss kids, they have come very frequently, and I go to Germany every year once at least.
Wow. And then have you traveled around with them, or they've mainly been here in Islamabad?
We have been several times to Hunza together.
Wow.
So these were basically about 2 weeks trips. The last one last summer,
Yeah.
when all my kids and my sister and me, so we were 6, going to different places in Hunza, finding new valleys where we hadn't been before. And Deosai is always part of that because of watching the bears, the brown bears.
What about security-wise? I mean, you mentioned your family members have visited you here many times. Were they ever scared to come here? Like, let's say about 10 years ago when things were much worse, even in Islamabad?
As I told you before, I have never felt any insecurity.
When you first came here over 20 years ago, were there a lot of foreigners living in Islamabad back then?
Yes,
Yeah?
it was quite a busy place.
Really?
And I was exposed more to foreigners because I was working in the embassy.
Exactly.
And compared to until very recently, it was definitely more.
Really?
When there was a
The
period-
number has gone down now, actually.
Yeah, the number had gone down until the point, until very recently, when they declared Islamabad again as a family posting.
Exactly, that made a big difference
That
for
makes a
diplomats.
difference, yeah.
Yeah.
So there were no kids, there were no spouses for many of the posts.
What do you think it is that makes so many foreigners like Pakistan so much, such as yourself, so that they want to stay here?
I think one is the diversity of landscape. You know, I said in the beginning, the topography.
Yeah.
You have everything from the Arabian Sea to the second biggest mountain on the planet.
Exactly.
You have wonderful cultures, and Pakistan is a big country. You know, it has 230 million people, and Balochistan is completely different culturally and topographically from this very densely populated Punjab, and then you have the northern areas and Sindh. I have traveled to all places and seen the differences. So,
What's your favorite? Is it the north?
yes, from the frequency of my travels, I would say yes. But even, you know, places like Sindh, I've been to Tarpakar and Chachro and Miti and places. Even in August, it was extremely cold during the
Really?
night.
Oh, because
I have done
desert,
once
yeah.
for the German Red Cross, a consultancy final evaluation of one of their programs after the floods in Dadu
Yeah.
at 45 degrees.
Oh, wow.
You know, having run focus group discussions and things like that.
Very hot weather.
This is Pakistan. It has a lot of differences.
Yeah, that actually brings me to the other topic I wanted to ask you about, which is gardening in Pakistan in such a hot climate. How is that different to gardening in Germany, for example?
Well,
What
in
do you have
Germany
to
you can
consider?
face differences in temperature up to -20,
Yeah,
which you don't have here.
exactly.
The only one time in all my 23 years where I had snow, not on the peaks of the Margalla hills, but in the city where
Actually, here in
kids-
Islamabad.
kids were, throwing snowballs
Really?
for a day.
Huh.
So normally it doesn't get less than
Zero.
1
Yeah.
degrees. That's it. And November is the best month
Is it?
for any of these activities. Also, a lot of agricultural produce comes from Punjab and
Yeah.
areas like that. So
That's amazing.
it is a
Great.
nice place, and
Yeah.
you can do everything basically. And
You can grow so many different kind of vegetables.
as I said, I started with tomatoes in my parents' garden,
Yeah.
and that's what I do here now. All these little saplings you see add up to about 20 different varieties of old varieties of
Yeah,
tomatoes,
exactly.
heirloom tomatoes.
And these are things that are not readily available here when you go to the vegetable markets. Like, for example, basil is a little bit difficult to find here, right?
Yeah, it's not difficult to find, but it's difficult to find it in quantities which
Okay.
would then, for example, pop up in restaurants.
Right. Yeah.
I know places where this is used and they import basil.
Really?
This is
That's so funny.
crazy.
Yeah,
And you see, look around, all the houses have flat roofs.
exactly. They could so
that
easily,
should be
everybody
easily
could be doing
being
this.
used.
So when you got married, did you have a Pakistani wedding?
Yeah, lots of dancing and music and all in the garden.
You
We
were
got
dressed in a
married.
sherwani?
Yes.
Very nice.
And I had a big J here, with the Mendi,
Mehendi, yeah.
because my wife's name is Jennifer.
Okay,
So I was proudly showing my J around.
great. That must have been quite a memorable event.
Yeah, it was. This is now almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, imagine. Wow. Who would have thought that you're still here gardening?
Yes.
Great.
So please try the muffins.
Yeah, looks delicious.
Fresh from the oven.
Wow. Delicious.
And they have to be warm.
Yeah, exactly. So aside from baking and gardening, what else do you like to do here in Islamabad?
Oh, I used to be member of the Asian study group.
Oh,
So hiking on
fascinating.
weekends was
Yeah?
always on my mind, yes. Being out with people and traveling in general. I have been visiting those places where I have been working before, especially Kohistan, as I said, is my area of heart, so I'm always
Exactly.
invited. I engage myself into, particularly now, I got a request to help organize a farmers market in Kohistan.
Okay, so
Along
you're
the
taking it
KKH.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a request, and then I look for outlets, for week-long daily supply of my partnered Kara cheeses.
Yeah.
So the cheese is now available at Esaji's in Kosar Market
Okay.
since last Thursday. I read a lot. I get wonderful inspiration every morning. It's the first thing I read is the New York Times.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that gives a bit of an international perspective
Yeah.
also, and there's a lot of things which I'm interested in. And and the garden keeps me quite busy.
Yeah.
When I did my accounts from the Saturday market on Sunday, and I don't basically have any weekends.
Yeah,
It
because
is
you're
like
working. Yeah.
Monday I'm always trying to do nothing, but it never happens. to start for the next week. I have to run a lot to secure my ingredients for whatever I do. You know, whether it is gur from Chasada or walnuts from Kohistan or deer or Swat, and wheat from Lucky Marwat, and you know, the rye from somewhere else in the mountains. I'm using a lot of wild millet from the Wakhan corridor, which is 3,800 meters. Yeah, that's this little strip between Afghanistan and so there is always an aspect of combination between baking, gardening, preservation, conservation of biodiversity. And then I have been asked a lot of times, why don't you give baking classes?
Yeah, that could be something.
I said, as long as I can move my fingers, I will do it myself. And once this is over, maybe I can think about that. Because, you know, what I do is 80% passion, and passion I can't teach. You have it or you don't.
Okay, so now it's time for our rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yes.
Great. Lahore or Karachi?
Difficult. Lahore.
Basu cones or fairy meadows?
It's difficult to distinguish. I did my honeymoon to Fairy Meadows.
Okay.
We went up to the Kunjarab Pass.
Wow.
And last year I went again to Pasu. These apples I am currently making jam of. They are from Pasu, so I wouldn't decide.
Okay, both. Zugspitze or K2?
Zugspitze is a very small one in comparison, but it's the highest mountain in Germany. I've never been there.
Okay.
So.
Have you been to K2?
No.
Okay. Neither.
Neither.
Okay. Badshahi Mosque or Faisal Mosque?
Badshahi Mosque.
Yeah, it's prettier. German whole grain bread or garlic naan?
German whole wheat bread.
Eintopf or aloo ki bhuja?
Eintopf.
Okay. Black forest cake or rasmalai?
Rasmalai.
Yeah, it's delicious. Bratwurst or Sikh kebab?
This is difficult because Sikh kebab can be very good.
Yes, it can.
But yeah, bratwurst, I think, if meat at all.
Yeah, all right. Cricket or football?
Football.
The best thing about Pakistan?
It's people.
Great.
And the hospitality.
Okay, then it's time for you to sign our visitor's book.
Yes, welcome.
There you go.
On the
Your
left.
name, wherever you want.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's see what you wrote. Pakistan is such a diverse country with so many hospitable people, so a lot more to explore and learn of this amazing country where I already spent 23 years. Thank you, Indus News, for this portrait. Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Most
us
welcome.
over and showing us your home.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it for today. Please join me again next week, and don't forget to follow us on our social media handles at indus.news. Goodbye.